Welcome to the JTV Caribbean News. I am Sean Rose. The state of emergency declared by France following the terrorist attacks in Paris has been extended to the French Caribbean islands of Guadeloupe, French Guiana, Martinique, Mayotte, Reunion Island, Saint Martin, and Saint Barts. The state of emergency was declared last weekend after the terrorist group, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS, claimed responsibility for the attacks in France. A statement released by the French Ministry of Overseas Territories said that the decision to include the Caribbean countries was justified by the necessity to reinforce security in all territories during the state of emergency that has since been extended by 3 months. Senator Novelle Francis hopes that U.S. Virgin Islanders practice heightened awareness of their surroundings in the wake of the tragic events that took place recently in France. Francis, a former police commissioner, is chairman of the USVI Senate Committee on Homeland Security, Public Safety and Justice. He said that U.S. Virgin Islanders should not take safety for granted. Last month, Francis met with senior Homeland Security officials from U.S. Customs and Border Protection to discuss ways that local and federal initiatives can align to combat criminal activity in the USVI. Francis encouraged USVI residents to be aware of what is happening in their community and report any suspicious activity to law enforcement officials. Grenada is the latest Caribbean nation to offer citizenship by investment, and now the country is looking to pitch its passports in Asia. Grenada Implementation Minister Alexandra Otway-Noel said Grenada was the perfect option for investors on the hunt for a Caribbean success story. Otway-Noel was addressing more than 200 delegates who had gathered in Singapore for a recent summit on citizenship by investment and international residence. Grenada revived its citizenship by investment program in 2013. The implementation minister said the country's program was accessible to individuals who wanted to see returns on their investments sooner than later. But she reiterated that Grenada would continue to test each project applicant under a strict due diligence lens. Heads of government of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, the OECS, focused on climate change and mitigation when they convened their 62nd authority meeting in Dominica on Wednesday, November 18. The speakers at Wednesday's opening ceremony called for heightened sub-regional dialogue on issues of climate change, mitigation, and adaptation. More in this report from HTS News Force.
The backdrop for the 62nd meeting of the OECS Authority is a country that was recently rocked by natural disaster. It's no coincidence that Dominica was selected as the venue for the meeting, as it is a glaring reminder that climate change is truly an existential threat. 3 months ago, Tropical Storm Erika battered the country, causing floods and landslides that claimed 30 lives and decimated homes and infrastructure. While the leaders will tackle a number of issues during their 2 days of deliberations, including free movement and the application for OECS membership by French territories, they say climate-related talks are high on the meeting's agenda. The high-level meeting is taking place less than a fortnight before the crucial Paris climate talks. Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit says COP21 presents the last opportunity to get a legally binding agreement on climate change.
For too long, I believe we have kicked the can down the road at the end of every summit which we've had on climate change. It was heartening to hear the comments of President Obama last night in the Philippines, and also the comments of the President of China, President Xi, in respect to the commitments going into Paris. Of course, we have heard very clearly the articulation of the President of France and also the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. So we're hoping that we can find consensus on this, because we in the developing countries who are the most affected by the effects of climate change, we cannot wait another year for another summit to discuss this issue.
The Director General of the OECS says come COP21, member states will continue to insist on a coordinated and meaningful response from the global community.
Humanity's disrespect for the planet Earth and the delicate ecological balance of life has resulted in climatic consequences that threaten the very existence of small island states. COP21 is going to be that critical crossroad that will determine whether we can step away from the environmental edge and begin to move towards equilibrium.
On Thursday, the OECS heads of government are expected to visit communities that were severely impacted by Tropical Storm Erika. They are also scheduled to engage with residents at a town hall meeting. The leaders have described the meeting as crucial as the sub-region ramps up plans for a united voice at COP21. Alison Kentish, HTS News Force.
And finally, in this week's Caribbean News segment, Executive Director of UNAIDS, Michael Sidebe, says Barbados is on track to end AIDS as a public health threat by 2030. During a recent visit, Sidebe congratulated the national AIDS response on its progress, noting that based on the data, the island could be among the first to break the backbone of the epidemic. Barbados Minister of Social Care, Constituency Empowerment and Community Development, Stephen Blackett, who also met with Sidebe, reaffirmed the country's commitment to fast-tracking the HIV response. He noted that in the new phase of the AIDS effort, Barbados is addressing the social determinants which support transmission, including intergenerational poverty and transactional sex. The UNAIDS Executive Director also signed a Memorandum of Understanding with the Caribbean Community CARICOM to facilitate collaboration on the UNAIDS Fast Track Initiative, validation for the elimination of mother-to-child HIV transmission, strategic information, and legal and policy development throughout the region. For the GTV Caribbean News, I'm Sean Rose.
And coming up next on JTV News. Geographical Information Systems Mapping clarifies electoral boundaries and assists in crime fighting and monitoring marine protected areas. Tortola Pier Park continues to make progress as the momentum builds for its grand opening. Ideas and cocktails stimulate entrepreneurs at GEWVI Networking Mixer.